Hello students. So students, as in the previous session, we have already discussed about the reduced syllabus. And now from this session onwards, we are going to start learning the chapters. So today we are starting with the very first chapter of your biology syllabus. And the name of the chapter is Living World. Biology as a branch of science, it is concerned with the study of living things or living organisms. So the definition is pretty straightforward. But however, it opens the door to more difficult and more interesting questions. The questions like what is life and what does it mean to be alive? Now students, as we know that planet Earth, it is made up of both biotic factors as well as abiotic factors. Biotic components or the biotic factors are the living organisms that are present around us. The living organisms like the primary producers, these are the green plants that grow around us. Then comes the herbivores. These are the animals that feed upon only plants. Then the carnivores, that means these are the animals that feed upon the herbivore animals. Okay, so they hunt and they kill the herbivore animals and they feed upon them. Then comes the omnivores. Omnivores are the animals that feed upon both plants as well as meat. That means they will feed upon plants as well as they will feed upon other animals. And then the last group of biotic factors are detritivores. Detritivores are heterotrophs that obtain nutrients by consuming detritus. What do you mean by detritus? These are dead organic matter. Now these are considered to be biotic factors. Other than this, planet Earth is also made up of abiotic factors. Abiotic factors or the abiotic components, these are non-living, chemical and physical factors that are present in our environment, such as sunlight, temperature, precipitation due to snowfall and rain. Then there is water and moisture and soil. Now the biotic and the abiotic factor, they together form a complete ecosystem. So what is an ecosystem? Ecosystem is the biotic and the abiotic factors together. Now the question that arises is that why do we call them living and how are they differentiated from the non-living? The also question that arises is what is that defines life? And how can we tell that one thing is alive and the other is not? Now most people, they have an intuitive understanding of what is meant for something to be alive. However, it is surprisingly hard to come up with a precise definition of life. And because of this, many definitions of life are operational definitions. They allow us to separate the living things from the non-living ones, but they do not actually pin down what life is. Now to make this separation between the life and non-living things, we must come up with a list of properties that are groups uniquely characteristic of living organisms. That means there are basic principles of life that actually are used to consider a living organism to be living. Now further, let us study these basic principles of life. The first basic principle of life is metabolism. Now a living organism or a living being, once born, it has to survive. And for its survival, it needs energy. With energy, it needs many chemical molecules. And for this energy, it has to perform metabolism. Okay. Now this metabolism, they are divided or they are grouped into two types: catabolism and anabolism. Now let us see what is catabolism and what is anabolism. Catabolism, it is a breakdown of complex molecules in the living organism to form simpler ones. So if you see this picture over here, this is a catabolic reaction where a large molecule, it is breaking down into smaller molecules. Now during this reaction, when this large molecule is broken down into smaller molecule, there are energy that is liberated or energy that is released. And as you can see here, the large molecules are broken down into smaller molecules. This type of reaction or this type of metabolic process, it is also known as destructive metabolism. And if we take example of catabolism, the first example is breakdown of glucose into carbon dioxide and water. Other than this, the next example that we can take is breaking down of protein into amino acids. These two are the examples of catabolic reaction where a large molecule is getting broken down into smaller molecule with the release of energy. Now what is anabolism? Anabolism is a complete opposite of catabolism. In anabolism, it is a set of metabolic pathway that construct the molecule from smaller units. So suppose there are small molecules. These small molecules, they get constructed into large molecules. Now for this construction process of smaller molecules into a large molecules, there is a requirement of energy. Okay. So anabolism, it is a building up aspect of metabolism. And as over here smaller molecules are getting formed into a larger molecules with the help of energy, this reaction or this process, it is also known as endergonic process. And the example of anabolism is amino acids becoming proteins. Okay, so as we know, the smaller units of protein is amino acids, and many amino acids, when they join together, they form a polypeptide chain of protein. So amino acids over here are small molecules, and with energy they form large molecules of proteins. So this is an example of anabolic reaction. Other than this, the next example is glucose becoming glycogen and fatty acids becoming triglycerides. So students, this is the first basic principle of life. Any living thing that has to be considered to be living, it should have this metabolic reaction in it. The next one is growth. Now living things, they are usually small when they start their life. They grow and they become adult. So from birth onwards, organisms, they show the tendency of growth and development. Now there are some animals or some living organisms that go through a complete change in their appearance as they grow and become adults. Now for this, if you take an example of a tadpole growing into an adult frog, or in that case a caterpillar growing into an adult butterfly, over here you will see that this organism, when they are young and when they are adult, they grow and change their appearance completely. Okay, there is a complete change in their appearance that you see. And then there are some organisms that show gradual change in their appearance. You can take an example of a cockroach. A young cockroach and an adult cockroach, they look very similar. The only difference is that a young cockroach will not have wings like the adult cockroach. So this is an example of gradual change in their appearance. With this, you can also take an example of human beings. a young one and a complete adult, they have similar appearance, but they go through a gradual change in their appearance as they grow into an adult. So that is how some organisms, they completely change their appearance, and then some organisms, they show gradual change in their appearance. Now if you take an example of plants, if we consider plants, there are some plants that grow from the seedlings, and then there are certain plants that grow from the spores. So if we take example of ferns, they do not form any seeds. So they grow from these spores which are present on the backside of every leaf. Okay. So in plants also there is difference in their growth. Now if we see a growth of a sand mound that grows in a desert area, or if you have seen the growth of a boulder. What is boulder? Boulder is this large rock. Here, they are considered to be non-living. Why are they considered to be non-living? Because here, the growth is not from within. Okay? So, this is the difference between a living and a non-living. So, when we consider growth as a basic principle of life, the growth has to be from within. And that growth is seen in living organisms. Okay, so that is how growth is considered to be the second basic principle of life. The third basic principle of life is aging. Now aging, it is a progressive physiological change in organisms that lead to senescence. Or you can say there is a decline of biological functions, and the organism, it loses its ability to adapt to metabolic stress. Now growth and development, they are not the process which have unlimited time span. That means they have a very limited time span. At certain point what happens is the molecules, the organs, the system, it begins to lose their effective working and then they become old. This is what is aging. Okay, this is the aging process of the body. Now if we consider and if we speak about different lifespans of different organisms, the maximum human lifespan is estimated to be 121 years. Now the lifespan of tortoise and a lake trout is again a type of a fish. Now a lifespan of these two organisms, it is unknown, but yet it is estimated to be around 150 years. Then if we speak about the lifespan of a domestic dog, okay, a dog which is domesticated, their lifespan is about 20 years. And that of a laboratory mouse, it is about 4 to 4.5 years. Other than this, Drosophila, which is also known as a fruit fly, which you will be usually seeing hovering around these ripened fruits. So the Drosophila, that is a fruit fly, it survives maximum lifespan to be 3 months. Okay, so that is how we can say that the aging or the lifespan of different organisms is different. So aging, it is considered to be one of the basic principles of life. Next, reproduction. Now every living thing, it can make copies of themselves, or you can say they can have babies. This is what is called as reproduction. So life has to continue, and hence the organisms, they try to produce a young one just like themselves. And this is to ensure the continuity of race. And this reproduction, it is possible by both the ways. It is possible by asexual means and it is also possible by sexual means. Now the animals that reproduce in different ways, you can see here in this picture, some animals, they give birth to their young ones directly. Okay, these animals are known as mammals. So if you take an example of a cow, when cow gives birth to a young one, it will give birth to its young one directly. Okay, and then there are some organisms and some animals that lay eggs that contains their young ones. And here you can take the most common example of a hen. Other than this, you can take examples of reptiles, you can take examples of snake. Okay, so this is one difference. Then you will see that some organisms, some animals, when they give birth to their young ones, they give birth to many of their young ones. Okay, if you must have seen a dog and a cat. Okay, when they give birth to their young ones, it is very rare that they give birth to one or two of their young ones. Most of the times, it is like 3 to 4 in numbers. But if you take an example of an elephant will give birth to one of its young one at a time. So some of the animals, they have many young ones and some of them they have few. Now if we speak about plants, again as we have discussed previously, some plants they reproduce through seeds and some plants they reproduce through spores. So again there is a difference in reproduction in plants as well. Now there was a question that had arisen, that is reproduction to be considered as a basic principle of life? Because if we take an example of mules and sterile worker bees, they do not reproduce but yet they are living. Mules, they are hybrid offsprings of a male donkey and a female horse. Okay, and they are man-made hybrids that have been hybrided for taking out or for obtaining benefits. Okay, so mules, when they have to mate, they cannot mate, they are completely sterile. So every time when a mule is to be reproduced, a male donkey and a female horse mate together. In the same way, if we take an example of a sterile worker bees, they cannot reproduce. Okay, so the question arises that can reproduction be considered as a basic principle of life? Because if we take example of such organisms, they do not reproduce but yet they are living. Now the next example and the next basic principle of life is sensitivity or responsiveness to stimuli. Now living things, they can sense what is going around them and they are able to respond to it. This is known as sensitivity. So any living being, they respond to thermal, chemical or biological change in the surrounding. So responsiveness to stimuli or irritability, it is a unique property of living beings and hence it is considered to be one of the basic principles of life. Now the sense organs, they are connected to the nervous system that carries the sense to the brain, triggering the response such as movement. Okay. Now the common senses are taste, smell, touch, sight and hearing. The best example you can take for this is that if you touch a hot vessel, okay, this is through touch, and as you touch a hot vessel which is very hot, you withdraw your hand. This is because your sense organs that are connected to your nervous system, the nervous system will carry these senses to the brain and the brain will trigger a response of withdrawing your hand. Now if we take examples of plants, plants are also sensitive to their surrounding. The best example is of mimosa plant, that is touch me not plant. Now this mimosa plant it shows this seismonastic movement. So So as you touch the leaf of this Mimosa pudica plant, it closes. The leaflets will close. This is because the water level, it goes down. So Mimosa pudica plant, it is sensitive to any foreign body that is coming in contact with it. Then if we take examples of geotropism. Geotropism, this is seen in plants that the roots, they grow downwards and the shoots will always grow upwards. And this is due to invisible pulling force of gravity, which is known as geotropism. Other than this, we also see that the plants, they respond to light by bending towards the sun. Okay, this concept is known as phototropism. So with this, we can say that the plants are also sensitive to surrounding, and hence sensitivity or responsiveness to stimuli is also considered one of the basic principles of life. So students, with this we end this session over here. In this session, we have studied all the basic principles of life.